I'm feeling like people are still working on the assignment, but I'm very confident that today we'll get it right. Nonetheless, as I mentioned earlier, the day is well packed, and we intend to close this ceremony in the afternoon so that people have time to travel back, going to their workplaces. So I would like to apologize for the technical hitch of this morning, but at the same time, I'm really inspired by our convener, who said that inawezekana, or who said that there is nothing that is impossible. And that really reflects very well with Psalms 147, verses 5, that tells us that the wisdom of the Lord cannot be measured. And honestly, that is a great inspiration to me personally. And I believe that the same will actually be reflected as we move towards today's activity. So let me kindly invite Bwana Rotich, who is going to open with a word of prayer. And then after that, the facilitators will take us through. And after tea break, there will be an online form for evaluation, which will be sent virtually to all of us. And we'll request that you find time to go through it and give you a valid and independent opinion on the workshop. And then after that, we'll have a closing ceremony. And before the closing ceremony, we'll have vote of thanks. And I know Prof has a way of doing it, so I will invite him her later to give us a way forward for that. And then after the closing, we'll have our lunch and people will go to their various stations. So without taking a lot of time, kindly Bwana Rotich, karibu sana utufungulia kwa maombi. Asante. And those who are following us online, we really want to appreciate you for taking your time to be part of us, especially Professor Njenga, who she has always been there very early in the morning, and she's always the last person to leave in the group. Thank you very much, Prof. Keep it up.
Thank you. Good morning. Okay, let's pray. Heavenly Father, we want to come before you. We want to give you thanks for the guidance you've given for us since we started the training up to today being the last day. We want to give thanks for our facilitators who have actually given us all they had, and it is, we thank you for that. As the day progress and as we end later, I pray that you give us peace, and we go back and find peace where we came from. For I pray this short prayer, believing and trusting in Jesus' name. Amen.
Okay, thank you very much, Bwana Rotich. So let me now take the program back to the facilitators. And as they take us through the last day, I would like you also to find your time to go through the program and do your own personal assessment to see whether your expectation has been met. And I think that will be very crucial so that we have a feeling of really accomplishing the reason why we are here over this week. So thank you very much, Bwana Paul. Karibu.
Thank you. For today, we continue with the exercise that we stopped halfway tomorrow. Just spend a few minutes, look into the claims that were drafted, the assignment that we started the previous day. So I'll just flash what was sent to me directly as it was sent, because some of them I didn't have time to pick them onto the presentation, onto a PowerPoint presentation. So I'll just be opening each one of them as was sent to me. Then you look at the claim, apply the knowledge that you have acquired so far. What we are doing is just critiquing, developing that eye that is able to analyze the claim, and you can see all the different parts of the claim, and you can be able to read and interpret what the claim is all about. So I've picked this one on the screen. I don't know whether you can all see it. You're able to see the screen? Okay. So the claim is a composition claim, the first one. It was a product claim. And the draft of the claim drafted it like this: a dawa concoction comprising 10 grams of fresh ginger, 5 grams of fresh lemon, and 10 mils of honey. I want you to apply the same analysis that we are applying to that. That's why I took a lot of time with the analysis of the first claim, so that you can internalize some of the rules that you need to apply to guide you in drafting the claim. So what do you observe about that claim? Or how can we improve it? Yes, Prof?
I'm just wondering, 5 mils of honey in 1 liter or 2 liters or 5 liters? Per what?
Okay.
At least.
So there is lack of clarity already. Yeah.
Because usually it is written per liter or per ml or something like that.
The quantities, the expression of the quantities. It's difficult to infer. If you say 10 mils, let's say I'm making the dawa concoction in a whole drum of the concoction, maybe 100 liters or 1,000 liters. I put 10 grams of fresh ginger, 50 grams of fresh lemon, and 10 mils of honey. Will I get my beverage?
I don't know how to put it, but it would have been necessary that we know the 10 gram, the 50 gram, the 10 ml is for how much, the quantity.
Yes.
So that maybe we are preparing 1 liter of dawa. So within 1 liter of dawa, we can have 10 grams of fresh ginger, 50 grams of fresh lemon, and 10 ml of honey. So that if you are having 2, then we double.
Exactly.
The utility.
Yeah. So there's need to have to always check the units you're using. So that is very clear to a person who is reading that invention, is able to infer exactly what you meant. What is the invention? Is this for a cup of the dawa or a glass? Is it against 10 liters of the dawa or 100 liters? So this claim lacks clarity, and it will be rejected on that ground. Something else about that claim? Yes. It's not a standard term in the field. Okay? So claims are essentially scientific. Use the technical terms that are accepted in that field of invention. And always English. Dawa is Swahili. It could be the trademark for the product, but you don't use trademarks in the description of invention. Okay? Something else? Yes?
Also, that the dawa, we call it dawa, then is it supposed, what temperature is it? Is it hot or cold? So temperature should probably be one of the contents in that way.
Okay. So in the sense you are talking about the parameters for making the dawa. Those ones would come when we are claiming the process. But when you're looking at an invention, which is a product, a composition, a device, an apparatus, we normally capture the essential features of the invention. The essential features of the invention. For clarity purposes, for example, if you are describing this pen, you would describe it by its parts. Okay? That is the invention. So if you are looking at a composition has what? Several components. So, and it's a physical thing. So you describe it by the individual components in the composition. A composition is made of different components. So it's about the components and how much of the component is in there to make the composition. So if you say it's a composition, then you just you go ahead and list the components of the invention. If it's an apparatus, it's the different elements of the apparatus and the way they fit together in a working mode to form the invention. Yes?
I think for me the biggest takeaway is when you're starting out, especially in the preamble, you have to be as broad as possible, yet sufficiently detailed. Now, if you look at that particular claim, when you limit yourself, first of all, when you talk about DAO and concoction, you're limiting yourself probably to something medicinal, which you wouldn't want to do that. And then secondly, when you talk about the ingredients, you also have to include other things that fall into that family of ingredients so that you can be as broad as possible. And then thirdly, I think it's also important to be consistent. Initially, you're talking about grams, and then down the lane, you talk about milliliters. Yeah. So I think you also have to be consistent.
Yes.
So initially, and then when you're going down, you start being specific. So you're listing out the specific particular issues until you finish them. And then maybe just to finish off, I think process, in spite of the fact that you're talking about a creation, you might also want to talk about the process, maybe as a pattern. Because you might have the same ingredient, but if you follow a different process, you won't end up with that particular thing. For example, you talk about tea. Like myself, all I need to do is boil water, and then pour milk inside, put something else, and that for me is tea. But if you talk to my mother or my grandmother, they will tell you that you have to boil milk first, and then you add water, alafu majani, kama si majani si chai, and then maybe to boil for some time, for the ingredients to cook and all that. So I think also the procedure, as a measure of specificity, as you're talking about when you're going down to the particular claims, can be something important for you.
Thank you. So the issue of the units, it depends on what compositions you are using. Are they available in liquid form, in which case you measure you can measure as well in liters. If it's pure water, you can actually measure it by weight, but you can also measure it by the volumetric equipment, like a flask, and you express it in mils, liters, and the like. So the units can vary depending on the need, but is it applicable to that kind of component? Like, for example, the honey comes usually in the form of the standard. It's a syrup, isn't it? It comes as a syrup. So you measure using the volumetric equipment. But you can also measure it. There's no harm in putting the units in grams, because it's also an accepted way of measuring the weight. So you could express it as a volume, or you could express it as a weight. Okay? And if you're using weight, then, for example, in this case, it could be maybe you can talk of 10 parts of fresh ginger, weight per weight. So out of the total composition, you have 10 parts, which is ginger in terms of weight. Could be grams or whatever other units you're using. But you use one consistent way. The best way to do is to express it as a ratio of the units that you are going to be using for your final invention. Like, for example, if you are talking of concoction, you could measure it in terms of weight, in which case then you can talk of how many grams of fresh ginger per unit weight of the final product, 50 grams of fresh lemon per unit weight of the concoction, the final concoction, and maybe 10 grams or 20 grams of honey per unit weight of the final concoction. So if you're expressing it as a percentage, the components as a percentage, they should all add up to 100, exactly. If it's fraction, it should all add up to 1. Okay? So in this case, it's not clear. Are we weighing these grams against a liter of the whole unit, or is it a cup? Is it a glass? Is it a drum? It's not clear. So this is one of a claim which can be rejected, or which would actually be rejected on the grounds of lack of clarity. Okay? Anything else you observe?
Before you go, let's go back to that. This for claim 1, you need to be careful in terms of like the first bullet, 10 grams of fresh ginger. One, what does the word fresh mean? Yeah, so this probably would be omits word like fresh is ginger, because when you say fresh, what does it mean? So you need to probably talk about ginger in the description. Then you say preferably fresh ginger. Then you define what is meant by fresh ginger. The same with fresh lemon. You need to also to define what is fresh. Does it mean it's lemon that is not rotten? Yeah, it's it's important to sort of be clear what you are saying, what you are putting in the claims. Then in terms of the grams, it's highly not recommended in a claim. Because for somebody to avoid infringing this claim, they just change to 20. Yours is very, very specific. Yours is 10, 50 grams, 10 ml of honey. What if I put 15, 60? I end up with 100, but the ratios are different. So you need to be careful. Don't be very specific in claims. Yeah, you can, like this one, for me, would be, in terms of the grams, when you're describing, you can give as an example, like a test was done. And this was done using 10 grams of ginger, 50 grams of lemon, and 10 ml of honey, as an example. So that which is not, you don't limit yourself when you come to the claims. Yeah. Then you can use word as, preferably. And that's why he's talking about the range. Give a range. If it's a fresh ginger, maybe 10, whatever it is, in terms of the ratio, you give maybe 10, a ratio of 10 to 20. But there's the optimal that you have. Then you say preferably this ratio, so that you don't tie yourself when you put the ratios in the claims, because we just avoid infringing when you are very specific. Yeah, because like my colleague has been saying, it's about the inventive concept that is get protected by the claims. And this is just an embodiment. You don't want to be very, very specific, because somebody can avoid infringing on your invention.
Well said. We move to the process claim. I'm looking for your observations. We are looking at the second claim, which is a process claim, which now, as he said, now this one is capturing the process of making the product. You can have one patent covering the two inventions, the product and the process. So you don't need to file two separate applications, one for the product, the composition, and one for the product, for the process. You can actually have one patent filed that has the two, okay? But they have to be connected as one inventive concept, okay? So you can have a product and a process of making the product, all in one application, okay? But they have to be connected to form one inventive concept. Otherwise, when that application lands onto the examiner's desk, if it's not properly connected, they can be interpreted as two inventions, okay? So the way you write the claim should actually be connected to the invention for which you are claiming protection. So let's start from the basics. The precedent, is it okay? Remember, this is an independent claim, eh? So the precedent should be? Thank you. It's either a or an. But because we are talking of a method or a process, a is appropriate as a precedent. The preamble. Any issue with the preamble? A method of for making concoction. That is a preamble.
Then you
The word dawa is not technical, so our preamble has that issue. Is anything else?
And also, after saying a method of making this conversion, then comma, just go straight to comprising. The other, I don't think the second method is necessary. You've already said a method for making what concoction, comma, comprising. You can now give the process.
Yes, it's good to avoid redundancy in claims. Although there's no harm, but they are necessary. Use as few words as you can. Okay? The more words you use, the more you risk. So we always advise, don't include words that are unnecessary. Remember, a claim is a single sentence. So try to use as few words as you can to say what you want to say. Because the second, the method comprising, in the same sentence where you are defining the method, then it's just a redundancy, as she observes. Anything else? Of course, ignore the line drawn there. It's not supposed to be there.
maybe probably the use of word confusion, different interpretation, probably something closer home. Like yesterday we were talking about beverage. So you look at a word that probably somebody can understand. It's clear what it means, the meaning of the word.
And again, when you talk of concoction, there's that perception that people have about concoction. So if you talk of a concoction, what comes into the general person's mind? Mambo ya uganga, si ndio? Miti shamba. That's what comes into people's mind. And that's not the impression you want for your invention. Okay? You want to create an invention whereby, even going into the market, the perception is when people read it, they're able to see, have that forward thinking of where you're going with your invention. Do you want it as a herbal medicine, or do you want to introduce it as a beverage in the market? Because even the words that you use can also have some effect on the perception of the product, the final product that will be made out of this invention. And you can have many different words to describe the same thing. So choose one that is most appropriate, one that gives it a positive outlook without compromising the scope of the protection that you want. Okay, listing of the various features, the limitations. Any problem with that?
I think first of all, you have to be specific as well. So when you're listing down the procedure, you have to tell us this procedure is for what? It's going to give you what? So for example, if you want 1 cup of whatever it is that you're making, then you have to be clear that this is supposed to give you 1 cup. But if you leave it that way, it is not clear the outcome that you intend to achieve. I don't know whether I'm communicating. And then I also think that the way it is listed, what if someone would come, what if someone in their own application will decide, will elect to begin with maybe slicing lemons into 2mm wedges, and then number 2, peeling and cutting ginger into 2mm pieces. I am not sure that will have a great effect on the outcome, because it's just a question of cutting. It's just a question of cutting, not doing the actual mixing and all that. So if you're sure that there can only be one procedure for doing something, I think you have to be a little bit more detailed in the way you are stating. So for example, you will say, begin by, okay, not necessarily that, but you have to be very particular as to what comes first, and then what comes second, what comes third, and how it's supposed to be mixed, and what you intend to get, or the volume of what you intend, the volume of the outcome.
Thank you. I hope that is clear. You've understood what he has said. We normally describe a process by what? The steps that are followed, one after the other. So for him, so he's advising you start by beginning with. You need to order the steps in a flowing manner. What do you do first? What do you do last? Sometimes if you interchange these processes, you don't get the product. You can actually end up with a totally unintended product. So the steps, one after the other, is necessary. Actually, we characterize inventions of a method or of a process by the steps of the process. And there's no harm in combining, like he's saying, you start by preparing the ingredient. Why not just have one listing? If the process of preparing those ingredients is the same. So peeling and slicing. So you can have peeled ginger, okay? Then the final step is slicing. All the ingredients, you clean them, you peel, and then you slice. So you can combine some of these steps as listed here into one statement. And you can therefore be able to reduce the amount of words that you are going to be economical with the words that you are going to use in writing that claim. And as I indicated, the punctuation, is it okay? Does it follow the rule? The punctuation. You just need to say yes or no because of.
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
In the first claim, you were talking about fresh ginger, fresh lemon. In the second claim, you are talking about only ginger and lemon. Are they the same product?
Let's say this was just for exercise. We are not very strict, to be very strict on the accuracy in terms of the ingredients. But it's good that they should have captured all the elements, because how do they form the composition if they're not involved in the process. So we should, the process here should have captured how you deal with each of the element and how it gets integrated into the final formulation. We should be seeing all the steps for all those ingredients.
As the 2 ml, 250 ml, it's too specific. Yeah, so for me, like the first bullet would be peeling and cutting ginger into pieces. So avoid 2 ml because again somebody can decide to cut into different pieces or the size. So so it's general. You cut into pieces. You don't be very specific into how many pieces, because those are some of the issues that somebody may just avoid infringing. Say, you tell somebody you're infringing my patent. Then when you go through the claim, they say, yes, I cut, but not into 2 ml pieces. Yeah, mine were 5 ml, 10 ml. Pieces. So at first, because it is independent claim, you'll be very broad, very general. Then as you go down to other subsequent claims is when now you put meat into it. And some of it, like the 2 ml, 250 ml, would probably come in the description and say, as an example, the way you prepared. Yeah, but when it comes to claim, you try to be a bit general. Bringing 250 ml of water to boiling point, just say boiling water. Because when you become to the boiling point, someone can say, I didn't boil my water to a boiling point. So boiling is boiling. So how much you boil in a claim is not encouraged. Boiling the mixture for 10 minutes. Again, there's another boiling the mixture for 10 minutes. Very, very specific again. Boiling is boiling. Whether for 10 minutes, somebody has boiled. For 20 minutes, somebody has boiled. So just boiling water. Yeah. Filtering the mixture. Yeah, filtering the mixture. The rest is too specific. Adding honey.
You narrow your claims, you put these measurements, and what happens is you have narrowed your invention, and any other person who is looking to commercializing that invention would work around. You have given them a big ground to work around your invention. So unless it's not practical for any other quantity to work for the invention, like for example, oh, okay. Okay. So unless that limitation is the only one that works for the invention, think about, somebody trying to evade infringing your invention. Because there will be people trying to work around your invention to create something similar to your invention. Your competitors will be there, looking to evading your invention and still be able to get into the market. So they work around those limitations that you have cited in your claims. So another observation? Yes.
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, I have observation on the first and the second part of the method. because to achieve the cutting of the ginger is we can use several terms. I don't know how we can have a broad term that can actually capture all of them. Someone can decide to maybe instead of cutting, you grate. Someone can say you chop. I don't know if you will have a different claim using those different ones, whether they will infringe or it will mean the same thing. And also the issue of the lemon, is someone might decide maybe to squeeze the lemon juice. So instead of slicing that lemon, squeeze the lemon juice and use the lemon juice. So I don't know whether it will have material effect on or a significant effect on the final claim, or it will be treated the same when such words are used.
And that's what I was saying. You need to be very careful with the terminologies you use. So, like for example, he's talking about the various methods for which you can use to extract. So, if you look at that invention as claimed, there's a way you can modify it so that all this cooking and whatever is changed. The slicing and whatever is changed. You are looking for extracting the important ingredients, which you may not necessarily need even to boil. You may just need boiled water. And you just add, mashed ginger, okay? Squeeze the lemon into it. You can actually extract and add onto something, which would be a different process, okay, from the one described here. But you would be realizing at closely the same kind of invention. The beverage. Thank you for pointing that out. Think of the possible range of things that you can do to arrive at the same solution. So when you're drafting your claim, you should capture all those possible methods. Okay? So this one could just be one embodiment of the invention. You can have another embodiment of the same invention, which involves actually extracting the syrups and mixing them, and then adding honey in hot water. It will still be the same composition. There is ginger, there is lemon, there is honey, and any other ingredients that you might want to use.
I think even the word peeling, another claim might come, someone might say clean. So I think if we can maybe have general terms that can actually encompass all those processes, it can actually go a long way. Like you rightly put, we can say ginger extracts, or lemon extracts, or garlic extracts, or prepare lemon extract, ginger extract, so that when you talk of the term extract, you can either cut, you can grate, you can chop, you can squeeze the lemon, or you can chop the lemon, and it will still mean the same thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So think of the broader aspect, because the key thing is you need a bigger scope for the protection of your invention, because you want to keep as many infringers away as possible, and you want to stop people from working around your invention. Product by process. Essentially, we are kind of combining the first claim and the second claim into this, whereby now it's the output of the process which you are claiming. Okay? Any observation? You can ignore the dawa, that one. I think we said you need to use the a better term than that one. Not a trademark or a term that's not accepted widely in the field of the invention.
No, I wanted to add something on what Rotich, is it Rotich? I had said, because you try as much as possible blocking other people to try and play around on your patent, isn't it? So instead of putting peeling and cutting, I think you can even say prepare ginger into pieces. Because when you say prepare, it more or less covers all those peeling, cutting, squeezing, and whatever. So you have a particular term that covers the entire process of preparing the particular dough. That's the comment I wanted to make.
The only challenge with some of those, if you go too broad, is that it brings into it an element of clarity. In clarity, may not be very clear. When you say preparation, what do you mean? What do you exactly mean?
You're not being specific. You know, when you make it,
you're not specific.
You're not being specific.
Yeah, but the challenge is, you know, the claims are supposed to be clear, concise. And if you use the word preparation, the issue of clarity and conciseness in the claim is lost. So using the word general may leave your claim subject to, because people will come with various methods. Unless it's clearly defined in your description what you actually mean by prepare. That is what will be used to interpret your word. So in case you have to use a very general term, then make sure in your description you've actually put down all the things that you mean by preparation. Like the way he's saying, there are ways, several ways in which you can prepare the ginger and the lemon. You can slice, you can grate, you can, even smashing can also be a method of extracting the sap.
Yeah, which you've described in your description.
In the description.
Yes.
So you make sure there you cover all those kinds of. When somebody is reading the description, this is the practice even with the courts. If a term is used in the claim, they look at how the term is defined in the description, how the term is explained in the description. So if anything falls outside what is described in the description, then it would not fall within the general term that is used in the claim. Like, for example, the claim can talk of a means of, holding things together. So when we go to the description, maybe somebody talks about glue, and specific type of glue, for that matter, or a tape. So that is what will be taken to be the means of binding the two things together that is brought out in the claims. All right. Are we okay with this? The punctuation is okay. The listing of the elements, and we always indent. We advise that you indent the elements when you are listing them down, and preferably, there are those who list them in a prose form, but when we list them in this order. For me, I find a claim looking much more better than when you just list them in a continuous flowing statement. Because here I'm able to see step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. So the product by process claim, here you just capture the preamble of the nini by the process of A, B, C, D. The product may be known, okay? Are we aware? Am I clear? Let's say, for example, headaches. Headaches is known. It's part of the public domain knowledge. So it's not new, okay? But I come up with a process, a unique process for making headaches, okay? Headaches is known, but I have a unique process for making headaches. So I can claim headaches that is made by my process, all right? Tunaelewana?